Hi, good afternoon. This is Miss Antinor, and I will be going over the 13 colonies, the American Revolution, and the Declaration of Independence. This is just a quick mini lesson review to help you with your Unit 1 activity for English. All right, so here we go. Originally, the United States began as 13 British colonies, um, meaning that Great Britain came over from Europe and settled on the eastern seaboard of the country. And that's what the states are here in red, and established colonies. And originally, the first one is going to be Jamestown, Virginia in 1607, but eventually the 13 on the eastern seaboard will lead to 13 colonies, meaning they belong to British colonies. Now, what is a colony? A colony is like a territory that belongs to a larger country, and for the most part, colonies would support their mother country, as it's called, with raw material. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But before 1776 is when the American Revolution occurred. Um, the United States was just colonies. We were not states, and definitely not as large as we are today, land wise. All right. So what you need to remember is that the colonies started off as Great Britain, British colonies. Here's a closer look at the 13 colonies. As you can see here today, these are states. Starting in 1607, Jamestown, Virginia, that's going to be where the first British ships came in, and a colony was established and lasted. There was actually one beforehand in North Carolina, but that colony did not survive. The colonists there pretty much died. All right, but Jamestown is going to be the first colony that kind of sticks in settlement, and you have um, basically British citizens moving to these colonies and establishing home, a place to live. All right, so 1607 to 1776, right? 1607 was the first colony of Jamestown. 1776 is when the American Revolution began. Now, I'm pointing this out because it's 174 years that the British colonies were basically left alone, meaning they self-governed themselves. Great Britain is all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, as you can see on this map here, in Europe. Okay, so Great Britain is in Europe, or mother country. Colonies are on the eastern seaboard of North America. And in between is the Atlantic Ocean. So for 176 years, the colonists were used to governing themselves as long as they sent raw materials to Great Britain. And Great Britain not allowed, but Great Britain supported the colonies by sending back finished product, meaning things that are made in factories, okay? Because Great Britain had the factories, the colonies did not. So colonies had the natural raw material, and examples of that is tobacco, sugar, rum, cotton, which is going to make a lot of money for Great Britain. And of course, there's going to have the slave trade that for the labor for these crops and plantations and things like that. My point is, as long as the colonists were sending money over to Great Britain takes the raw material, manufactures it in their factories. For example, tobacco gets turned into cigars, sugar to rum, cotton to fabric and material. So, and then Great Britain would take those finished products and send some back to colonies, but also sell it, or as we call it, trade with Africa and Asia and the Middle East. So basically, the colonies were basically making money for Great Britain because they were able to grow these raw materials here that Britain could not grow over there. Britain had the factories, but not the climate and the landscape to grow certain products, certain crops. So 170 years, the colonies left alone. We govern ourselves. Great Britain said, as long as you handle your business there, you just send us the raw materials, everything's great. Now, in 1753, there's going to be an event called the French and Indian War. And this war was between the two big powerhouses, Great Britain and France. And the dispute was over the Ohio River Valley, which is in the Appalachian Mountains, as you see there on the map. And basically, it was French fur traders who got into it with British fur traders. They were both trying to trade fur and, I guess, beaver beaver fur in that area was very popular, and trade with a certain group of Native Americans in the area. Basically, it turned into a huge dispute on who can trade with who was there first, yada, yada, yada. So Great Britain's going to send their army because the colonies didn't have an army, and their navy because the colonies didn't have a navy. Because remember, we're just colonies, we're not countries. So Great Britain sends the army and the navy. It turns into a war against France here in the colonies, basically. And at the end of the day, war is expensive. Their national debt is going to double. Okay, so national debt doubles. This time, King George III is the king of Great Britain. So Great Britain is feeling like, hey, colonists, we came over, we sent our troops, we sent our navy, we protect your waters from pirates. We fought this war to keep you in the beaver fur trade. How about you start helping pay some of this national war debt? And also, rules and laws were starting to be applied from Britain onto the colonies. So the colonies took a step back and said, whoa, we've been governing ourselves for 176 years. Now you want to come lay some laws down here. Also, the colonists did not have anyone over in the government and parliament in Great Britain representing them. There was no one over there to represent what the colonists wanted as far as legislature, as far as making laws for them to follow, for them to be governed by. So that's where the slogan, taxation without representation, comes from. The colonists felt as if we don't have a voice in government. We send you our raw material, you make money off of us. We should be able to be left alone and govern ourselves. We don't have a voice in government over in England, therefore we're not being represented, and you're trying to create laws for us. Also, Great Britain, again, with this national debt, how do countries make money? Well, it's through taxes. So with this national debt, Great Britain's going to pass a series of taxes as well to further upset the colonists. Okay, and that's when you have the Tea Act, which is the tax on tea coming into the ports, into the colonists. Then you have the Stamp Act, meaning any piece of paper, whether if it's for like any legal document or record, you have to pay a tax on it to get a stamp, and the stamp says that you pay the tax. Sugar Act, tax on sugar, things like this. So these things escalated. That started off with French and Indian War. Great Britain is in a war debt. Laws and not allowing the colonies to govern themselves anymore after they had been allowed to do so for so long. And also, colonists didn't really feel that British anymore. You have generations and generations now here in the colonies that idea of feeling like they're British or that attachment to Great Britain was kind of dissolving at this time. And you have a new king who's trying to impose new harsh rules and laws and punish you, things like that. So it's going to lead to the rebellion. Okay, you have the British Tea Party where the Sons of Liberty, dressed up like Native Americans, snuck onto a ship in the harbor, dumped tea in the water. They destroyed this British tea as a way of protesting. And then the British government is going to try to punish the colonists by the Intolerable Acts, take away their guns, send militia or military over here to try to police the colonists. So colonists were feeling like any turn they made, they couldn't get out of the situation that they were in. So this is going to lead to the Declaration of Independence, and which basically is a breakup letter written by Thomas Jefferson. So the colonists came to a breaking point where they said, look, we need to just declare our independence from Great Britain. We're going to break off from them, and we're going to start our own country, as we've been kind of doing this whole time. We can do this. So Declaration of Independence is written, and basically it's a breakup letter, and it's to King George, and it basically says, King George, we are breaking up with you, and here's a list of reasons why. And Jefferson goes on to list the grievances or the reasons why they are breaking off from Great Britain. And in your assignment, that's exactly what you're looking at, is the list of grievances. Okay, and then you're going to compare it to 23 years later in the Bill of Rights, how it leads to some of those Bill of Rights. I hope this helped.